Welcome back to the Commanders Declassified podcast, your home for all things Washington Commanders. We are going to do our final installment of the rookie class declassified episodes. Tonight, we're going to be talking about our first round pick, Josh Conerly out of Oregon. We're going to bring you all the information you could possibly want to know about this draft pick. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people who feel a lot of different ways about this draft pick. We're going to get into that tonight. We're also going to talk about some of the things that are really positive and some of the things that potentially Conerly may want to continue progressing in his career. But as always, let's start with the background details. Now, Josh Conerly out of Oregon, he was their left tackle there. He is 6'5", 311 pounds, at least at the combine, 10 and 3/8-inch hands, arm length was 33 and a half. He's got good size. Now, I think to continue to develop into the all-pro tackle that we think he can be, he's got to add a little bit of weight. He ran a 5.05 40, 1.71 yard, 10-yard split, fastest amongst all linemen. His 10-yard split was the best at the combine. I want you to remember something. All the guys that we've talked about in this draft class have had great 10-yard splits. Adam Peters is on to something. He sees a trend and he likes it. His vertical jump was 34 and a half inches. This guy is 311 pounds and had a 34 and a half inch vertical jump. That's insanity.
Ridiculous.
He did play at the Senior Bowl. He had 6 total pressures allowed in 2024, 1.5% pressure rate. Now, for comparison, Tunsil at the NFL level had a 3.1% pressure rate, second best amongst all tackles. Now, obviously, when you get to the pro game, a little bit better competition, but this guy can pass block, and he can do it very well. He actually started his football career, I believe, as a running back. He also played defensive line, and then he finally switched to offensive line. He is very light on his feet. The consensus was he had the best movement ability of any offensive lineman in the draft, some balance issues, and like I said before, he's light in the legs, and he can struggle a little bit with smaller pass rushers. Now, Mike, talk to us about system fits and everything else you normally talk to us about these draft picks, will you?
So he's an athletic tackle who fits both the zone and gap concepts equally. Based on what I saw, I don't think he will struggle in one scheme one way or another. He's smart and he's smooth with stunt pickups and pull blocks. So he can move. He's not stationary. He has good feet, like you said, based on his 10-yard split and other measurables. Very good athleticism and agility. He excels on the moves. He's good at lead blocks. He's good at air seals. Extremely patient with his hands and rarely gets overextended. And for a team like Washington, who proved last year that they can run both the gap and zone schemes, he's a perfect fit. I don't think it's a coincidence that that Peters drafted him at 29 because he just fits in perfectly what Washington does. And he has the athleticism to pull it off. And honestly, there's not much more I can say about the scheme fits because he could pretty much do whatever you want him to do. And that's the theme with all the picks, it seems like. They all been versatile, athletic picks that can fit multiple schemes. And Washington is a team, both offensively and defensively, who loves to be versatile. So it's no coincidence that they're picking versatile players.
When I was watching some of him, I immediately said this guy would be a star in Mike Shanahan's offense because of the way that he can move and the way that Shanahan likes to move his offensive linemen around. We didn't see a ton of that last year, especially with the tackle position. I'm curious if they're not going to implement some of that on lead blocks and stuff like that.
Honestly, they couldn't run it like that. Like
They are.
Wiley just was not good at moving, especially compared to Coleman. And I think in running games, you would want your linemen to be in sync. And quite frankly, Wiley just literally could not keep up.
Yeah, they are 100% going to be a heavy zone running team this year, just looking at all the additions that they've made. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get into my part. But they're going to be a zone running team this year.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And let's talk about it. College productivity and pro outlook, Eric.
Yeah, college productivity, you kind of touched on it. He allowed 2 sacks over his last 2 years in college. 9 pressures allowed in 2024, 17 in 2023. A really high pass block win rate. You said it. He's a super fluid athlete. There's just no complaints. You saw what he did against Abdul Carter, which you never want to just draft a guy based on one game, but it was kind of a consistent theme throughout his careers. He played better against better competition. He raised the level of his play when he had to, and that's a really good kind of harbinger of what's to come in the NFL. I really do like him as an offensive tackle. The play strength is a little concerning to me. That's the one thing he probably is going to need to work on. I personally feel like he might be a career right tackle. I don't know that he's ever going to make the move over to the left. Not that he can't, but I think right tackle might be his home in the NFL. And that's great because you need a great right tackle. Just ask the Eagles and the Lions what that means to have a great right tackle. So that's definitely something you want. As far as pro comps, this was tough for me because I'm admittedly not an offensive line guru, but what I see in Josh Conerly is a young player that's super athletic with a lot of room to grow. That's probably going to slot into right tackle for the foreseeable future. And I know a lot of people in the comments are going to get mad when I don't compare him to Penei Sewell or Trent Williams or somebody like that. I'm not going to do that. But who I am going to compare him to is Green Bay Packers right tackle Zach Tom, who is going into his 3rd year in the NFL. Came in not a first-round pick. He was a day 3 pick, I think, a 4th round, maybe a 3rd. But hyper athletic, very similar athleticism traits, and has ascended every year. And he's, even though you may not have heard his name, he's one of the top right tackles in the NFL, and he is still ascending. And he, again, in that Matt LaFleur system, right? We brought in Laramie Tunsil from the Bobby Slowick system. Guess who all those guys kind of cut their teeth under? The Shanahans. And that's where we're going offensive line. Cliff Kingsbury, just the moves they made on offensive line, the ability to now move Brandon Coleman to, right or left guard. And then when you get Sam Cosmi back, you're going to have a very mobile and fluid offensive line that's going to just be a zone running team. And I think that helps. It's going to help Bryant Robinson a lot. And Josh Conerly is going to fit 100% into that scheme because he has got that he's great in the open field. He's not going to be a mauler, at least early on in his career. He's not going to be that road grader type. He's a guy that you get out in space. You can get him out on a linebacker or a safety or even a corner, and he's going to make that play because he's got the athleticism to do it. And I see a lot of that when I looked at guys like Zach Tom, very similar skill set. So you may not have heard it. You may not love the comparison, but I think it's a fair comparison. He's going to be, I think in a short term, he's going to be one of the better right tackles in the NFL. I don't know that he's ever going to be a Penei Sewell, right? I don't know if he's ever going to be Lane Johnson, but he's going to be in that, top 5, top 7 right tackle in the NFL conversation for a long time and very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the potential is there. I'm going to read to you this scouting report on him. Tell me if you guys agree with this. We're going to start with his strengths. Elite pass protector who shows exceptional consistency in protection, marries outstanding technique with natural athleticism to sustain blocks. I'm not done, but Eric, to your point about not being a mauler, he doesn't win with mauling and aggression. He wins with technique, right? He is a technique-based player. Natural knee bender who plays with consistent sound pad level, allowing him to maximize his functional strength despite not being the biggest tackle prospect. Shows impressive range and body control, reaching the second level, taking precise angles and breaking down smoothly to engage smaller defenders in space. He is a quick processor. How many times have we heard that about these draft picks this year? Who identifies and smoothly pass off stunts and twists, maintaining proper weight distribution throughout the exchange. Demonstrates advanced understanding of leverage points, consistently getting his hands inside the defender's frame and controlling the point of attack. He's a fluid mover in space who excels on pulls and screens, showing the coordination to intersect and wall off defenders while maintaining his balance. Showcases strong recovery skills when initially beaten, using his athleticism and length to run pass rushers past the pocket. Clean, efficient footwork and pass protection that allows him to mirror and redirect against counters without compromising his base. Now, weaknesses. Can get caught overextending against hesitation moves. Allows crafty rushers to work back inside when he gets too aggressive with his initial set. While improving, current play strength is merely adequate, and he can struggle to sustain blocks against powerful defenders who get into his frame. Thank God that homeboy from the Rams retired, Aaron Donald. Shows more polish as a pass as a pass protector than a run blocker. Remember that, because that is very important. Can struggle to consistently create movement in the ground game. Hand placement can be inconsistent, particularly against speed rushers where he'll land strikes too far outside and leave his chest exposed. Despite good technique, pure mass and anchor strength remain work in progress that could be exposed by NFL power rushers. So all that to say, he is an elite pass blocker, right, who can be overpowered because he needs to get stronger playing the position, which is going to take a couple of all seasons. Sound technique, right, but can get exposed a little bit, right? I think what we're saying here is this guy is going to be really, really good. It'll be really interesting to see how Cliff Kingsbury schemes against some of his limitations at right tackle. And Eric, I think you're right. I think for the foreseeable future, he's your right tackle. You can't move him to left tackle until that play strength increases significantly. And then he can prove out all the other things, right? And that's why you have Laramie Tunsil, right? Because Laramie Tunsil has gone through that already. He's there. All right. So getting back to the program here, thinking about like his potential to start in 2025. I'm gonna give you this this readout I have here from Jordan Reed. By the way, the last synopsis I read was from NFL Draft Buzz. Jordan Reed says he plays with good bend and has B-level range and pass sets, and his initial strike allows him to be the aggressor in pass rush. He's also capable of repositioning his hands against quick rushers, though his hand placement is inconsistent and his play strength needs to be developed. Conerly needs to add bulk to his frame, but he projects as an immediate NFL starter at either tackle spot. He's going to start this year, and he's going to be your right tackle, and it's going to happen from the start. I had a couple of comps that I was thinking about. Initially, I was thinking about Morgan Moses, right, out of UVA when he came in. And Morgan was really good. He was pretty sound. Now, Morgan had some penalty issues, which I think came from actually bad technique, because I think he'd been in from the waist a lot, which Conerly doesn't have those issues. But I think that type of prospect and that type of production at right tackle is what I would expect early on. And then there were others, but I'm gonna leave those out because I think they're a little bit too lofty for the initial look at this. We'll revisit those in this offseason. Mike, what does he bring to the roster or the lineman room that the other offensive linemen on the roster currently don't?
Before I answer that question, I'm gonna actually shout out my nephew who did an excellent, just excellent write up on Josh Conerly after we drafted them. He gave a lot of tidbits that we all talked about already, honestly. But I like his grading system that he gave out for pass blocking. As we already talked about, he's good at it. He gave him a 9.8 out of a 10. Like, that's the tape kind of backs it up, especially for a rookie entering the league. He does say that the blitz pickup is a 4.7, zone blocking 8.2, power blocking 9.0. So he thinks that Conerly is a better power blocker than the zone blocker. So that was interesting. He says second level blocking is suspect. He gave that a 6.0, and he gave his overall grade a 7.54. So I feel like that's just a good grading system for offensive linemen that he came up with, and I just wanted to shout him out for that. Like, it's really solid in my opinion. Now, as far as what Conerly Jr. brings that other offensive lineman on the team doesn't, to me, it's simple. He can do everything. I don't think there's a lineman, maybe outside of Cosme, who can say that they do that well for their position. He brings a mix of power and quickness. He's not just finesse or just a mauler. Is he better at one than the other? Sure. There's no need to say that he isn't, but he can do both. And like we said a couple of times already, he's elite at pass protection posture. He keeps his base. He absorbs power rushes. Very rarely panics. He has makeup speed. He can recover from bad blocks, where I feel like who we had last year, I really hate like banging on Lally like that. Especially this man's a Super Bowl champion. Like, it's no disrespect to him. I'm just calling it like I see it. We mentioned earlier he's stellar at pull blocking, opens up designs for the option runs that we like to run here in Washington. He's a scheme-proof, athletic player, and I just seem like that other people on the roster, maybe outside of Coleman and Tunsil, and be honest, I guess, as a center, they can't say that. But bringing it, well, no, I'll say that for later on the show. As far as what he brings that others can't, like I said, he's more athletic. He's younger, like super young compared to the other linemen except for Coleman. And he kind of can do it all. Like, it's an excellent pick for a 29th round, 29th overall pick. They really did a great job on this. And it might have shocked us when they went offensive lineman in the first, but after thinking about it, it was another chef's kiss by Chef Peters.
Yeah, like if you're looking for finished product, I think you're going to get till close to his deal renewing before you see the finished product of what he can be. But he's going to get consistently better every year, and he's going to start out pretty good this year. I think, when you look at what we got out of the right tackle position last year, I think he's going to be better than that. Is he going to be significantly better? We have to see him play against some of the rushers that we have in the NFC East as a rookie, right? They move Micah Parsons around in Dallas. They still have the other guy on the other side. You have the Eagles, who always have pass rushers, right? You have the Giants, who have two now with Thibodeau, and they also have the kid out of Carter out of Penn State, right? So he's going to have his opportunities to prove himself. I think you're going to be really impressed early on with Conerly, but I think there will be moments that are going to continue to show you that he's still a rookie, which is absolutely fine. All right, Eric, why did Peters draft this guy over the other tackles that were available at that point?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at where they picked at 29, the options pretty much everyone agreed was going to be offensive line, specifically tackle, corner, or edge rusher, depending on how things shook out. And the value at edge rusher at 29 just wasn't there. So that kind of went off. There was a big drop off after the top guys in the draft. Corner was a possibility, but I think there were several guys that they did like. Obviously, they took Amos in the second round, which nobody saw him dropping that far, at least from the outside. There were also guys like Maxwell Hairston there. Will Johnson was still around. So I think they felt like maybe they had a better chance at landing a good corner in round 2 than a good left tackle. So I think that's why they narrowed down the position on tackle. Now, the real shock to me, and I think a lot of us, was that they went with him when they went with him over Josh Simmons, when they went with Conerly rather over Josh Simmons from Ohio State, because I think all of us thought that if Simmons was there, that we did those mock drafts all off season, and we were just like, yeah, we're taking Josh Simmons here. It's a no-brainer. So that was a little bit of a surprise to us. But then you look at the knee injury that Simmons sustained, and I think that was probably could have been the deciding factor. Plus, would Simmons have been a better fit for the run scheme and the stuff that Cliff Kingsbury wanted to do? We don't really know. But I think, Josh Simmons, I think, is an ideal fit for that now that we look back at it. And I harken back, not to compare, this is not a fair comparison, but back to the 2010 draft when Mike Shanahan took Trent Williams, when everybody thought they were going to take Russell Okung at the same spot. And safe to say that Mike Shanahan was right in that scenario. But again, not to compare Conerly, he's nowhere near the athlete that Trent Williams is, but he was the right. I think it's going to shake out. Like when we look back at this 5, 6, 7 years from now, we're going to see Conerly, if he stays healthy, was probably the right pick. Hopefully we'll say that he was the right call over Josh Simmons at that time. So that's why I think they went there, at that point in the draft. I just think the value at edge wasn't there. They probably liked their chances of getting a good corner in round 2, and Conerly was just the left tackle that they liked based on his traits.
Yeah, I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think it's easy to kind of look at this and say, they could have done this or they could have done that. But think about scheme fits and think about Cliff Kingsbury and what he likes to do. we talked about left tackle a little bit, but also remember that we're playing so much out of the pistol now that left tackle versus right tackle is not as important as it once was because we're not under center dropping back with our back to the left side of the line. Jaden Daniels sees the whole field from the moment that he takes the snap, generally speaking, right? And so both tackle positions will be absolutely critical, which I also think is a big reason why they went and got him. I was looking at some comps while you guys were talking. You guys remember a guy named Christian Darrisaw a couple of years ago out of Virginia Tech that I think we all campaigned for on this podcast as well. And they opted to go in a different direction here, or he was picked before we could go. I can't remember which one. But he's another one that was of similar size coming out of school. Now, I think Darrisaw was a little bit more of an aggressive run blocker, but I think he could develop into something like that. The other one was a guy named Dwayne Brown. I actually heard that one listening to
from the
Todd,
Texans.
Yeah, from the exactly. Todd McShay brought that comp up, and he was an All-Pro, or at least he was. I can't remember what the award. Maybe he was a Pro Bowler. I think he had an All-Pro season or two, something in that range. Todd McShay was absolutely in love with the Conerly pick. Even before Conerly was drafted, Todd McShay was extremely high on him as a player, as were a lot of other folks. So who am I to argue with that, with the positivity coming in from those particular analysts? Do you think this, Eric, changes anything in the way that we approach the pass game? I know we talked about the rush game and going more to a zone-based scheme. What about the passing game?
If it frees things up, I mean, you mentioned the pass rushers in the NFC East earlier, and specifically the Cowboys, the way they move Micah Parsons around. And you look at the two games against Dallas, they almost exclusively put him over Andrew Wiley and Allegretti, like almost exclusively. He was either shooting that A gap or he was over the right tackle. They pretty much, you had a rookie left tackle who was, mid-level at best, and they still didn't even really mess with that. They almost all of his pressures came against the two weak links in the offensive line last year. Both of those have now been addressed by, bringing in Laramie Tunsil, allowing Coleman to play guard, and then drafting Josh Conerly on the right side, moving Wiley to probably right guard early on, and then depth once Sam Cosmi comes back. So I think I don't know if it's going to change the approach of the pass game, but it's certainly going to help the pass game.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. And what I really, really think about is sort of how we ran our offense last year. And, Jaden Daniels was so good about getting the ball out quickly, but a lot of the offense was lateral. A lot of it was quick read, get the ball out, which was perfect because that's what Kingsbury's system is. Do you think, Eric, that Kingsbury's going to get tempted into some longer developing plays now? You think he's going to kind of stick to what he does?
I don't think so, because I think that's his style. I think that's just the kind of stuff that he likes to call. He likes to get guys out in space. And again, that, Conerly and Coleman moving to guard is going to help that because you've got way more athleticism on the offensive line. It's going to open that up more. But I don't think he's going to change his philosophy of a quick release offense. He may let Jaden cook a little bit more. If something's not there, if things break down in the second, he may be able to hold on to the ball a tick longer and let things, play out in the secondary a little bit more. But I don't think Cliff Kingsbury necessarily changes his approach to the offense, because I think he calls the style that he calls, and he's been consistent at that ever since he was at Texas Tech.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mike, do you think that the addition of the offensive linemen that we have, especially Conerly, and also some of the picks we made in the draft elsewhere, is this designed to have Jaden run less, or do you think this is that's going to result in Jaden running more in this offense this year?
That is a great question. I think it might depend on what Daniels wants to do. If he thinks he can handle running the ball more, I think the offensive line may open up more holes and more opportunities for him to take off. But also, he can let it rip. And I feel like it may be the answer of the theme of the offseason. I feel like both. Like both will happen. He's going to run more, and will be more longer development plays. I think I heard Quinn say in one of the press conferences that they did not use the entire playbook last year. And if that's the case, then hey, I say why not throw it around a little bit more. And if teams are respecting the pass, hey, throw a couple of run options at them and let them, let them cook, let the offense cook, however they would like to.
I think the biggest help to Jaden Daniels running this year is going to be Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Because
I'll say,
a lot of the stuff that they ran Jaden on last year were almost like naked boots and just like quick sweeps that relied on the wide receivers blocking down. And Deebo Samuel is a nasty blocker when he wants to be. And that's that's kind of a staple in the Shanahan system too, is you have to be able to block like that. And I think Cliff really likes that as an offensive coordinator as well. Guys who block, and Deebo is as good as it gets as far as blocking on the outside.
I thought you were going to say, oh, I'm sorry, Ellie. I thought you were going to use the motion, but you went even further with the actual run blocking from Debo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think having him and McLaurin blocking for Daniels, you're on to something there for real.
Yeah. You don't want your quarterback to be your leading rusher, but I think they're accepting that this is part of his game. It's part of what makes him special, and they're going to allow him to be himself. I was also thinking that, like, when it comes to this offensive lineman and what Cliff likes to do, and the question I asked you about changing the offense, then I said to myself, all they did this offseason offensively is go out and replace the receivers that were there last year with very similar type of receivers that are just younger, right? And cheaper too, quite frankly, right? Because, like, you got rid of Oz and you brought in Lane. You got rid of Diami. You still have Luke McCaffrey here, right? These guys don't do different things than what we had here. They do the same things or contribute in similar ways, most likely, right? They brought in Debo. Debo runs the screens that we ran last year. That's kind of his specialty, right? Take the short, take it to the house, right? Or get a lot of yards from it. To me, all the signals say the offense isn't changing much, if at all, except for the run game, like you guys talked about, where we're going to go away from a power scheme to more of a zone scheme, which Jaden was running a zone scheme by himself. It's just when our running backs got the ball, we switched to more of a power scheme, right? And so now the offense is going to be just more fluid because we're all running the same scheme at all levels, which I think is going to be really good to see. Personally, I would love to see a running back be our leading ball carrier. But hey, the offense will be the offense, and I'm okay with that because I trust what these guys are doing offensively. Eric, if our offensive line last year was, let's say, a 5, what does the addition of adding Conerly make our offensive line this year on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, I mean, if it was a 5 last year, not just I got to go across the board. It's probably an 8 to an 8.5 this year, maybe higher depending on how Conerly plays. But the addition of Tunzel and then moving Coleman inside to guard that's just massive. And I don't like to sound like I'm hating on Allegretti and Wiley. I mean, they did their job as best that they could, but you look at the contracts that they signed and they're here. They have depth guy contracts, but they were starting on the offensive line. It's not their fault that somebody better couldn't beat them out. They did the best that they could. So I don't want to hate on those guys. And again, they could do a better job than any of the three of us could at offensive line. So, but I just think that the upgrade of Tunzel and Coleman and Conerly all together just really catapults this offensive line, depending on how, Coleman does inside at guard, which I think he'll be great at guard. I think Coleman may be a Pro Bowl level guard. And how quickly Conerly adjusts to the NFL. If those two things, work out well, this offensive line could be, a 9 level. But right now, I'll put them at an 8 as compared to last year.
I just love the thought of Cosme and Coleman on the inside. Like, that is just going to be amazing, especially when Cosme's healthy, and then we have Biotic as center. I think that those three right there are going to move some dudes, on the offensive line. All right, let's go to final thoughts. Mike, what are your final thoughts on the Conerly pick, the impact of the team, and how he'll elevate us as a rookie?
That leads me exactly to what I wanted to say. The Conerly pick alone with the Tunsil trade, it really, really changed my perspective for the entire 2025 season. Because, as I said, I think on draft night or the night after the draft or whatever, I was okay with the line as it is. I thought maybe we would upgrade one piece and go into the season, but I was okay running Coleman at left tackle again for next season or for the rest of his career or whatever. I felt like he was good enough, decent enough, especially for a rookie. Why not? But no, they doubled down, man. They traded for Tunsil and then went again and got another tackle. When was the last time you can honestly say that Washington was 9 to 10 deep on the offensive line? You can never say that. So now you got a quarterback with the offensive line. I rest my case.
No, I feel you. I mean, and you have the Jordan Davis, the Jalen Carters, the Nolan Smiths, the Zach Bond. You know,
you need it. You need the offensive line. Washington has built it. I know it's premature to say that they did it, especially after only one season and 2 off seasons. But I mean, look at it. Like it's a great mix of youth and experience with athleticism and strength. It's really a good offensive line, especially with a quarterback like Daniels who can both run the ball and pass the ball. You got a versatile quarterback with a versatile offensive line, versatile running backs, versatile receivers, and the tight ends. I guess that's what we'll be building next season. We might have to tough it out with Ertz, which is not a bad thing, but as far as the pick, like I said, it really changed my entire view of the 2025 season. I went from Washington maybe being an okay team next year to seriously thinking that they can be a strong contender.
Yeah, I like the optimism. I mean, you know, we play in a division now that is going to require you to have a great offensive line to be effective. The Eagles proved it. The better your offensive line, the better chances you have of winning the Super Bowl. They dominated. And they beat us pretty good too. And we couldn't pass protect in the way that we need to. We have a quarterback that can neutralize a pass rush. When you mix that in with a improved offensive line, we're going places. We're going real places. Eric, what are your final thoughts on the Conerly pick, sir?
Yeah, I'm excited. And I'll say that the Tunsil trade improved the left side of the offensive line dramatically. That combined with the drafting of Conerly improved just the overall strength of that whole unit. Because again, you upgrade left tackle with Tunsil, one of the top left tackles in the league. You now kick Brandon Coleman inside the left guard, which moves Allegretti to the bench, which makes phenomenal depth on that left side. You also then you bring in Conerly, which allows Wiley to kick inside to guard, where he's actually better at, in my opinion, to start the season until Sam Cosmi is healthy. And then you have Wiley and Allegretti as depth pieces, who Wiley can play, 3 positions on the offensive line, and Allegretti can play either guard spot. You've got a lot to work with there, and that's not even, the borderline depth guys are now gone, and the guys that were depth, like Trent Scott, he's still there, but he's like depth for the depth. It's these 2 moves were just massive for this offensive line, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can accomplish this season. If everything works out, you always got to put that caveat because you never really know. But I know this is the Conerly Declassified, but I can't talk about Conerly without talking about Tunsil as well, because that just shifted the whole tone of the offseason and just strengthened that unit so much that it's just unbelievable how much potential that unit has. And I'm really excited to see the whole offense play next year.
One more thing real quick. We lost Cosmi in the NFC Championship game, which means that he will be out until the middle of the season. I can't tell you if I've ever been less panicked when losing your best offensive lineman for half a season. It's like Cosmi is out, and I'm like, okay, it sucks, but we'll survive. And that's, again, it's just a testament to the front office and them attacking the offensive line the way it needed to. It was unexpected, but it's exactly what the team needed.
Well, and in terms of the amount of time that Cosmi will miss, I saw Stephon Diggs at practice for the Patriots, and I think he tore his ACL too last year. Now,
you're not going to see him there long, though.
He ain't gonna be. No, you're right. But and Cosme's offensive lineman, I mean, that torn ACL really matters in that position. Hopefully, throws a brace on it, but he gets healthy. Give him all the time he needs. But the key is we have the luxury of time now that we've improved our depth and at the offensive line. So I'm excited about the pick. It's not an exciting position, but it's a highly impactful position. And I think anything we can do to reduce the number of hits on Jane Daniels and lengthen his durability and his lifespan in the NFL, I'm all for. So this was a phenomenal pick. They got their guy. And I think the emphasis needs to be on their guy because there were other linemen to take that were highly rated. But I think the smart football people really, really like this pick, and therefore I'm going to like it too. And I think he's going to do some amazing things. And I think we'll be talking about him as a Pro Bowler in 2 years and an All-Pro by the time his contract gets renewed there, or we sign him to a new deal. So, all right. Thank you for listening. This has been a Josh Conerly Declassified episode. Make sure you are subscribed and you have your notifications on all platforms. We appreciate all the new subscribers we've gotten recently since we started doing these declassified episodes. Make sure you tell your friends, keep spreading the good word. We appreciate you. Hit the comment section too, and we'll catch you next time. Commanders Declassified. We are out of here.